everyone. Welcome to the 48th edition of the BD Sports Talk Podcast. Here to give you the latest scoop in the world of sports in the great state of Michigan and the great city of Detroit. This week, we're going to recap the Lions draft, how we think they did, what is the ideal scenario for Detroit and Jared Goff for the future, and the weekly Tigers update. Short and sweet. I am Bill. I guess I just described myself as well. One of three co-hosts, along with the D&E of the BDE, Dean and Eddie. Fellas, glad to be back. Liked your episode last week. It was missing something. I couldn't put my finger on it.
Ooh. No, it seemed about right. I mean, it was
actually pretty good.
Actually.
Yeah.
It was
this
awesome.
is Bill signing off. I'm glad to be back. Glad to talk some Lions draft recap. Eddie, you were correct. I was on work assignment. Literal
yeah. Work assignment.
So how you guys doing?
Good.
Doing sweet, man. Reinvigorated after the big sports week that was.
Yeah,
Yes.
This after this week, it's gonna get pretty slow. So buckle in.
For who? You gotta start looking at NHL draft prospects.
It's true.
See what's cracking in Sweden. Since we don't get Bally, we gotta watch Swedish hockey. The Derby. Who's your horse, man?
Derby? We're gonna have to have Taylor as a special guest on there.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm kidding.
Taylor Hannah, I know you share these. I don't know if you actually watch them, but
I think he's 50-50.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. So, all right. Well, let's just get into it. Let's go into the Lions and the draft weekend recap. Fellas, I'm pretty happy. All things considered, right? I think what we'll do is we'll just go down each pick. Just give your thoughts. And we'll go from there. So at 24, the Lions took Terrion Arnold from Alabama. As most everybody knows by now, they traded the 24th and next year's 7th round to the Lions. The Cowboys did for 29 and 73 overall of that weekend. Arnold, love it, right? Love it. Great. He's got great character. Big fan of him taking the microphone and just kind of letting his personality show. That was pretty cool. Great cornerback, I think, or good cornerback. I think he has a chance to be great. Do you guys agree with me?
Well, yeah. I mean, if at this moment, yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with you. He had a great college career. Should hopefully transfer over to the NFL. I mean, it was great that he was even still there at 24. Like Eddie and I had said last week, we felt it was most likely that they would trade up and take somebody. And I'm glad they went DB. I mean, as we were talking during the draft, it's like, I mean, it wasn't a surprise, but it was kind of, just because of who, I mean, there's still, guys on the board that people thought they should take or whatever, like Cooper DeJean or even Kool-Aid. I mean, it's a very 50-50 between who helped who out the most at Alabama between Kool-Aid and Terrion. But we didn't even think he'd be there at 24. So, I mean, that was a huge leap and a good grab, especially in a passing league today. You need as many corners as you can get. So, I mean, you went from having your biggest weakness on the team, not necessarily turn into your strength, but it definitely looks like it could trend that way. So I was really happy with the pick.
I feel like Brad Holmes needs to go.
Yes.
You mortgaged a next year's 7th and a 3rd for this. People got to rethink.
Disgusting.
You Brad bots out there who just go in line with whatever he does. Nah, I mean, yeah, I liked it. It was a good pick. I like Dean was saying, I mean, we did think if there was one move, stay put, go down, go up, it was certainly to go up. And I think that speaks to the makeup of the team and how close we were to a championship run, and how close we are. Arnold, obviously, a great pick. I don't know if you guys saw this came out today or maybe yesterday that they had a trade in place for Darius Robinson up at the same spot.
Yeah.
But Terrion Arnold was still there, and it was kind of like, we can't pass on that.
Right. Yeah.
Which I think maybe at the end of the day, then maybe they thought Darius Robinson and then Rakestraw, which we'll get to later. But as I highlighted pre-draft, this kid has elite RAS. He posted a 9.25 out of 10, 14th on PFF Big Board as far as just overall prospect. I feel like he's starting to get figured out here, man. Brad Holmes and what he's going for and what he's drafting, because that RAS score was up there. He's a perfect corner for Aaron Glenn's man scheme. A physical kid. Looking forward to seeing him play, man. I really liked that pick a lot.
Yeah,
great. Yeah, and the good thing about it is that with them bringing in Carlton Davis and Amik Robertson, there's really no pressure for him to be that guy, even though he could be right out of the gate, right? But it
could be.
It kind of takes the pressure off. You got Branch there too, and I'm not sure what they're going to do, and we'll get into Ennis here in a second. But I mean, he could be starting this season.
I hope so.
I think he probably will be, and I think it kind of shows that they're going to have Branch play safety a lot more this year than he did last year. I mean, as we all saw, I mean, he played a lot of corner or nickel slot type of guy, and he was probably our best corner when he was playing in that position last year.
Which is
in slot, yeah. I mean, he's not going to play on the outside.
Slot, yeah.
Just a little shit.
But I think the writing's on the wall. Sorry, I cut you there.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
No, I think the writing's on the wall with Branch moving back to safety too, because Melifon was in a contract year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not so sure he's a everyday regular starter on a championship defense or not. I mean, he can be a piece and you win a champ. Like, I'm not saying that, right? But I think if you're talking about Branch or Melifonwu, you're not going to pay Melifonwu $9 million a season over the next 3 years, probably, when you have Ryan Branch sitting there. He's probably going to give you more.
And probably going to try to re-sign Kirby Joseph, I'd imagine, if they decide. I mean, they might move on from him. I mean, you never know. We can get into that later, though.
I mean, looking just on paper, if you put Branch at safety with Kirby Joseph, Carlton Davis, Terrion Arnold, it's looking pretty good. Slot. Yeah. And just completely changed that secondary just in 2 nights. 3 nights. 2 nights, sorry. Which leads us into pick 61, which was Ennis Rakestraw. He I think they just traded. They didn't trade for him. They just picked him at 61. Stayed. What's that? I'm sorry.
I said they just stayed. Yeah. I was just agreeing with you.
Doubling up on cornerback.
I also agree with you. They stayed.
I third that too.
Third yourself.
I agree with me and that they stayed.
So
hell of a take.
Doubling up on cornerback. Another one where when you sit back and you actually look at it, like, man, it's so cool to see that they're drafting not based on I don't know, best player available, but what they needed. And we'll get into Manu, next as well. And seeing how you can kind of start to see their image on defense. And, Dean, you brought it up earlier. You can't have enough corners, especially with the past history of the Lions and injuries in the secondary and everything like that. So, Eddie, did you like him at 61?
Yeah, I mean, in the moment, I wasn't sure, right? But at the same time, like as we all are, we've bought into Brad and what they've done as far as team building. So I wasn't concerned. I'm like, okay. I mean, we've lost a couple guys. We brought in a couple guys. When I was, like I said, when we texted you, when I was texting you guys during the draft, I was like, we were an injury out and having to start Kindle Vildor in the NFC Championship game. And I wouldn't say that's a thing that cost us, but obviously there's a big play that cost us that he was in there, and we've re-signed Kindle Vildor, but that's besides the point. As far as Ennis Rickstraw, of course, I was talking about Elite Raz, but he did post a 4.79. He was scored a 2.5 because of his weight alone. He's a light guy, not that big. PFF Big Board had him at 46. Second round secondary players with low mid RAS scores. I mean, that hit last year with Brian Branch. So I feel like that adds up. Branch didn't have a huge RAS score, but so not a big guy. Hits like a big guy. He honestly reminds me of Branch as far as the tape I've seen, which isn't much, right? I mean, I've seen highlights. I shouldn't say tape. I've seen highlights. But almost certainly not going to be as good. But yeah, I mean, I like the pick. I mean, you need that depth. He seems like a kid that plays the scheme that Aaron Glenn is playing, and he's a hitter. He's solid on the run as well. So I like the kid.
Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, I texted you guys about it too. I thought going corner again wasn't going to be the play there. I thought maybe they'd go O-line or, I mean, obviously eventually they did, but they thought maybe they go line, maybe they go edge rush there, since they didn't get the guy that they might have possibly traded up for in Darius Robinson, because Arnold, I mean, you can't pass up talent like that when it's there. And but no, I think he's going to fit the scheme good. You want to talk about not having any pressure to perform right away. I mean, he's right now probably the fourth guy on the list, if not below. I mean, I doubt he's below Vildor, but Vildor didn't play that bad for what he is. You know what I mean?
What is
being a guy?
Say it.
For being a guy they just picked up off the street. I mean, that really
he was an eat 'em up Tigers guy before they signed him.
Yeah, exactly. He had the fist just going down the street. I mean, in reality, I mean, I'd never heard of him or known what any team he had played on before. I mean, I know he's not very old, but so I mean, just getting a guy off the street, and he's a good, fifth special teams guy to have on the team, and if you need somebody, he can play a little bit. But yeah, no, I thought it was a good pick. After we had talked about it, like Eddie had said, I mean, having Vildor playing in the NFC Championship game wasn't a great, but no other options. You got to do what you got to do.
Well, when you think, I mean, not just with San Fran, but like just in our own division, the weapons, the offensive weapons on the other side of the ball. I mean, Green Bay to Chicago to Minnesota, you got to have a platoon.
Yeah. And you really got to look at what Chicago did too. I mean, they've got weapons. If Caleb Williams is any good at all, they're going to be something to be worried about offensively, for sure. I mean, you can't.
I was trying to tell another guy that, and he goes, "Oh, dude, it's Chicago. They're just." I'm like, "Look at the team, man.
Look at their
They've
weapons.
Been building a team.
They've got 3 legit receivers, a good running back, and a good tight end. And if Caleb Williams can play and if the O-line can just be okay, they're going to be somebody that you got to deal with.
That's what
sure.
I said. I said, dude, if Caleb Williams is just okay,
yeah,
they're going to be good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Pisses me off. I was like, you don't understand where this is coming from. I hate that team. So you just have to be honest about it.
Yeah.
The weapons are there. He was like, well, they always, get some big name guys. It's just like the Lions used to do. What I'm like,
but these are legit big name
that's
guys.
That's not the same.
Receiver.
Hey, Kyle Vanden Bosch was legit.
Okay.
So was Nate Burleson. Nate Burleson was coming off a 6th Man of the Year award. All right. So take it easy.
6th Man of the Year award. Yeah, no, there definitely gonna be something to worry about. And like you had said, like you're gonna need these corners, and injuries happen. And
Mosley, is he gonna even really
exactly? And then you start to look at our corners and their injury history. I mean, you look at Carlton Davis has been hurt the last couple of years. I think last year was like his first almost full season or something like that.
Almost is key. Yeah. He hasn't had a full season in 3 years.
Mosley played 2 plays last year, and those are our top 2 corners at the moment. So, you need these guys. So, especially when you got the Bears and the Vikings, loading up on offensive weapons, you're going to need those guys. So it was a good pick for depth and for potential.
Well, and that's the thing is that in 2 years, it could be Arnold and Rakestraw being the 1 and 2 because I think Davis might be. Is this his last year on that contract? I believe.
I think it's either this year or 2 years. I think it's a 1-year flyer. I think you're right.
Yeah, I think he is, and then Amik is a 2-year.
Okay.
So in 2 years, who knows if Davis would come back after. We'll see how he performs anyway, but so that leaves, Emmanuel Mosley, who knows, right? I'm not going to count him out just because he got hurt, but there's a very real possibility that they drafted him for the future. Obviously you draft anybody for the future, but looking towards hey, he's going to have to we need to get this guy now where he can develop and he can be our number 2 in 2 years. So, I assume that's the plan, but
that's the hope, right?
Right. So moving on, round 4, which was pick 126. They took Giovanni Manu, and the Lions gave up a 2025 third round pick to the Jets to move up.
That's a big one.
It's a big one.
To move up in the 4th.
Mm-hmm.
To draft a big fella. Not a lot of tape on him. not a lot of tape, but this is one of those picks where it's well, let's see how. We know and we trust. We've said it already a couple times. You trust Brad Holmes, but this is one of those picks where, man, he hits. It's huge, right?
Oh yeah,
6, 7,
especially with Decker's contract being up after this year.
So yeah, I
could be.
How do you guys feel about them? Like Eddie, like you just said, that's a big move to move up to the 4th round. Did you? Obviously at the time you're kind of like, what's going on? But now that you processed it, how do you feel?
I still don't love giving up a 3rd to move up in the 4th. But if the guy, like what you're talking about, if he's a long-term guy, then it worked out. And it's very possible that he does. Here's another guy, elite RAS, 8.83. You can see why. I mean, the kid's an athletic specimen.
Mhm.
Hard to know what you have with him, but you can at least see what you have physically, and that's hard to pass on. I mean, I'm okay with it. It just you don't know. You, you can only really judge it on what happens 2-3 years from now, on what that meant and what we could have had and whatever. So right now, I'm definitely good with it. Before the draft, I was talking about we need more guys on the line. We got older guys. We got guys who might be retiring. You got Zeitler on a 1 year. Glasgow. Will probably retire after this contract. I mean, I don't know, but Decker will be gone for, it's just so it makes sense if they just see it. And Brad, if he is the one who did the evaluation, then I fully trust it because I mean you talk about elite Rads, the dude's an elite talent evaluator. It has been for a very long time. So I'm okay. I'm okay with it now. Hopefully it materializes. It feels like, I mean, you can't call a fourth rounder a bust, but it just feels like that's how that one ends up.
I mean, you can still call it a bust just based on what they traded for to get him.
Yeah.
But
Because the third is big capital, man.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you see it in trades with like big players too, where you're, back, when we were kids, it's like, man, so and so, that's definitely a first round pick, and then they get traded for a third and a future fifth, or you know what I mean.
I mean,
So-
Ladarius Sneed got traded for a 6th round pick or something. Top 3 corner in the league. I mean, now granted, that's because the other team had to sign him afterwards. But still, you would assume like, oh, that's at least a 2. I don't know.
No. Yeah. No, that I didn't love the pick, but I mean, it's clearly somebody they picked up just purely based on raw potential. I mean, like you said, there's not a lot of tape on this guy, but he's a monster. I mean, you can't teach it, right? He's 6'8", 350 pounds or whatever. And he ran like a 4.9 40. I mean,
Yeah.
That's insane. Like, you want a guy that's pulling off the line. I mean, he's going to fire off, hopefully. I mean, as long as his footwork's good, I mean, he could be a pretty good offensive lineman. And if nothing else, he'd be a decent depth piece. I mean, you'd hope. I mean, you see a guy like that on the field. I mean, but yeah, no, it's definitely a boom or bust type of pick. I mean, there was no, there's just nothing to really go off of other than what they've seen and what they saw at British Columbia or whatever. So we'll see what happens. I mean, pure potential, big athletic dude. Decker's contract is coming up. Maybe they're hoping he can learn something. I don't know. Maybe he's good right off the bat. You never know. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say there's no way he's a starting tackle next at the 2025 season.
I agree.
You don't know that.
I don't. That'd be
he's a
amazing if
monster.
he was. Then we have the steal of the draft. But
who's the other tackle that's in the league that got drafted that starts now? Which tackle was it in the league that starts
there's a
now?
lot of tackles that start in the league that got drafted.
Well, let me list off.
There's one really good offensive tackle that was also in a similar position as he was, except he got drafted higher, and he plays regularly now. I can't remember who the guy was. So there's not a lot of them. He's like one of one. So we'll see. We'll see what goes down here in the near future.
Yeah, I feel like they drafted him to be a project almost.
Yeah.
But you would assume that someone else was probably going to try to get him, and we'll see. I don't know. It's like, I'm with you, Ed. Like, it's kind of feels busty, but
He reminds me of that guy you would draft in like Madden, where like they have the college stories or whatever in the news line, and he's like, "Oh, 6'8" athletic monster." You know what I mean? You're like, "Oh, I'm taking that guy in the 4th round." Like, he's
dominates Hawaii.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Doesn't allow sack in 4 straight seasons and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Then you draft him, and he's like,
he's got no potential. And
no
he's
potential.
slow and, yeah. Like, oh, I wasted this. Pick.
Or he's that guy that was at the very bottom of the big board.
Yeah.
Now
but you see the stats, and you're like, you know what? I'm gonna take a flyer on this guy, and it's a diamond in the rough.
Like, dude's got 80 speed, and he's a lineman. You know what I mean?
He's got no great pass blocking or run blocking, but his like IQ is just through the roof.
Yeah. IQ and speed and physical.
So next up is Sione Vakai. I think Vaki. Thank you. Sione Vaki.
I don't know. I think so.
I think you're right. Sent picks 164 and 201 in a 4th round selection next year's draft for picks 132 and then also 210, which was in the 6th round. Safety / running back. I was listening to a draft recap this morning, and from all everything I listened to and what I've kind of read, not a bad pick. And I watched some highlights of him, mostly at safety. But the podcast I was listening to, and it might have been the Detroit Lions podcast, I think that's what it was. They talked about, or it was PFF. Regardless, either one. They said when he stepped in to play running back, he was very good.
The Utah v USC game.
Yeah,
they bring that one up.
I don't remember
because that's one I kept hearing.
It was like
I looked it up
in the morning.
Go check that out. There's highlights from that game.
Okay, you hear that?
If you're interested,
no, I am interested. I am interested because I had read or heard that they drafted him as a running back.
Yeah.
So
that's what I saw too. Yeah.
So we start getting into these, and I say we start getting into these late round picks, but the last 2 are the ones I'm really intrigued about outside of Darian Arnold. But should be a special team guy right away, right? Vaki.
Yeah, Darian is great as well.
I'm a big fan of Darian. He was probably my favorite choice.
Darian is athletic freak. That guy.
Oh, elite Raz.
What did I say?
What?
Nothing. Darian Arnold, baby. Let's go. Welcome to the D. So this guy,
what's going on here? I leave for 1 week.
Darian.
You said Darian.
Darian. It's Terry, or I don't know if it's Terrian or Terrion. But
sorry. I'm sorry, Mr. Arnold.
Mr. Arnold, do you?
Mr. Arnold.
I'm sorry, sir.
I was a bit. I mean, it was another kind of a surprise pick for me. Vaki was, just because I didn't think either of those positions were a real need for them. But I guess when you get to that point, plus they traded up quite a big ways to go up and get him as well. But then you start to think about it. I mean, even if you're drafting him as a running back, he can play both sides of the ball. And I think it was more of you're drafting a football player and you're not just drafting a position, somebody that can be versatile and maybe move around. I don't know what their plan is. But I mean, you think about our running back situation too. I mean, it'd be good to have somebody in the wings that can fill that role if needed. I mean, same thing with safety. You have a guy that can do both sides of the ball. I mean, maybe, I don't know if they'll really move him around like that during practice or whatever, but like you said, at the very least, he's going to be a special teamer. The guy that's going to get on the field probably quite a bit. I mean, you don't move up even into the 4th round and take a guy with that versatility and not play him anywhere. So once you really start looking into it, I liked the pick more and more as I looked into it.
Yeah, yeah, from the outset, certainly one of two for the general, all of us really, potentially head scratching picks. But the one thing you got to know is the kid's got elite RAS.
Nasty RAS.
8.54. And when you see what he's done as a running back, and I brought up the Utah USC game, it's like, man, the kid's kind of a beast. I mean, you've already highlighted, I think he'll be an instant special teams contributor on all special teams due to his experience tackling a safety and as a running back, fake punts, field goals. With that minimum, the potential, if not certainty, to challenge Craig Reynolds for his spot right out the gate. So Vaki, I think is from the outset you're like, yeah, okay, is that the pick? But at the same time, dude, how easy is it for a running back to get injured? How far? I mean, both running back Gibbs and Monty spent at least a game away last year, and Craig does a nice job for the most part, but he's not dynamic,
right?
And if you can get something like that, if you can get something like that out of your third guy, where people are like, oh man, that guy could be your starter, like that's a good problem to have, to where he's like, I need this or that, or I want to be traded because you're that good. So for the near future, it's great. And you see what happens after that. So no, I like him as a person who's going to play regardless. And I'd be surprising if he wasn't on every special team, just based on what he can do offensively and defensively. So,
hey, you might see Manu out on kickoff. So it's,
he
might be a special teamer as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think he could be in there certainly for the field goal unit. Great spot for him.
Yeah, no, I agree. I completely agree on the Vaki take at running back and challenging Craig Reynolds. I'm looking at the highlights right now, and another thing I'm noticing too is that as I'm watching this real time, he catches out of the backfield. He can catch balls out of the backfield, which is another
They
thing.
say he could be our number 2 receiver, even. That's how versatile this kid is.
He's out there playing linebacker.
Reynolds didn't need him. We got Vaki.
So next is the last 2 picks is Mekhi Wingo, the defensive tackle out of LSU. Slipped down the board. I think it's a good pick because it's another one of those. He doesn't have to. I mean, he's you don't usually start 6th-round picks right away anyway, but you have guys up front ahead of him that he can learn from. Lee McNeil, DJ Reader, those types of guys. I like the pick. I don't know why he slipped so far. I don't know if you guys have that. I'll be honest with you. By the time we got to Sunday, I was I had stuff I had to get I had done, so it's kind of been catching up on reading. But how do you feel? Do we love it?
I didn't
Do you
hate it. The more I've looked into it, I mean, I know Eddie's going to point it out, but I'm pretty sure he had a solid Raz score, a big old nasty Raz, and and I've seen a lot of
Did.
comparisons to
8.78.
yeah, and it's good for a D tackle. It's good. I would imagine that's good, right? But
It's out of 10, so it's pretty good.
right? But I've seen a lot of comparisons with him with Aaron Donald in a sense of being an undersized D lineman that's powerful on the inside. He's a good leader. You know, I mean, we'll see. I mean, 6th-round picks aren't really, you know, meant to come out of the gates and start. But I mean, and I don't think he will over McNeil. But McNeil's been off and on, and he could be a guy that could fill that role if needed. We'll see. I mean, it's when you start getting into these rounds, it's definitely more on what they could become more than what they are right now.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, great Raz, 8.78. Great Raz. I think the potential is there as a rotational player, at least within the next 2 years. We'll see. I think Onwuzurike is the one that's probably got to worry, if anybody, that this kid could be coming, and or maybe it'll give Onwuzurike a kick in the butt. You know that he might need to really step his game up. So that's where I think Mekhi Wingo is. I think he's kind of the replacement, or the jump starter for Onwuzurike, who could end up looking like, you know, a failed Brad Holmes pick, which is not surprising. I think we're going to see more of those in the future as things materialize, and you guys stop holding him up like he's Jesus. And
can't hit on all.
We'll see how it goes, man. That's what I think. I think he's just more of a plug-in guy, and you see if he can become a better version of Levi, or hopefully inspire Levi to be better. I don't know.
Either or. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Which comes to our last pick, which is Christian Mahogany out of Boston College. Not really much to say other than I love it. To be completely honest with you, I feel like if anything, he can be a guy who can be a solid backup in year one. I read an article today that did you guys see the rumored reason why he fell in the draft?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one leg was shorter than the other.
Significantly, they kept saying.
Yeah. So
how significant is it? I haven't noticed, so I don't know if it's that significant.
One's this long.
Yeah. He's just been on one leg the whole time. I'm just like, oh wow.
He's like, that's my strong leg.
It's like, I love pulling on screens. Okay. You're more of a pass blocker, my guy.
You know, I feel like he can be a backup right away to Zeitler. We'll see, you know, if Zeitler could just be the 1 year deal, and then, you know, you're looking again. So great pick, especially in round 6. I feel like you guys agree with me.
Yeah, I didn't hate it. They needed O-line depth and help. They needed a guard for sure, somebody young that could possibly, you know, maybe even take over. I don't know. I didn't catch a lot of his games, or even if I did, I probably didn't watch him specifically. So, you know, I mean, we'll see. I mean, that's surprising though, that's the reason why he fell so far. Cause I heard he was supposed to be like a day 2 pick, and then they ended up getting, you know, obviously they got him in the late 6th round. So, I mean, it was a good value pick for them, regardless of how short his other leg is. And I mean, when it comes to depth, I mean, you think of our backup guards last year with, Sorsdahl was kind of playing out of position, right? Like he's more naturally a tackle. Isn't that what they drafted him as? Like he's versatile.
He was a tackle in college. But they projected him as a guard.
Him as a guard. And it's not like he played terrible, but you could definitely upgrade from there. And then Awasika wasn't great. I know he was more of a project guy. I mean, I didn't think he was great. So, I mean, anywhere that you can possibly try to upgrade with a guy that was supposed to be drafted on, in the third round, I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, again, elite Raz, 9.58. I mean, that's right up there. I mean, you got to wonder why he fell. A consensus top 100 prospect. You could say it could be his one longer leg. It could be his 2022 ACL injury. Holmes did say there were potential reasons why, but they'd keep those internally. So I wondered if it was like an attitude thing or a group of friends he had around with him for interviews or whatever. But if it is, I mean, if it's that, honestly, he's going into the perfect situation with guys like Decker, Sewell, Ragnow, Zeitler, Glasgow. I mean, they're not going to let that kind of thing fly if that's the case. So to me, Mahogany is potentially probably my second favorite pick of the entire draft for the Lions, obviously after Arnold. It's easy to see him as a potential long-term starter after Glasgow and Zeitler. That could never materialize at all, but it just feels like it. As long as he's got his head on straight, and if it is his leg, hopefully that's not an actual issue, because I thought I'd looked up his numbers and I'd heard him and I never verified him, but it was like he had allowed like one sack right in the last 3 years or something. Like if that's the case, is it really the leg?
Right.
So I don't know, but yeah, I really like the pick. I liked that pick a lot.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Real quick, what would you give your grade, your expert grade for the draft overall?
I mean, I've seen a lot of different gradings for the Lions, and all of them say A for them, and I think that's justified in a sense of who they reached. They didn't have to reach for anybody. They got guys for good value where they got them, and I think I agree with that. So I'd give them an A.
I mean, I've seen anywhere from A to a B. I think ESPN had him at a B.
No, they didn't. I don't know.
Are you sure?
I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't think he did. So, because you could look up secondary draft things or look to the worldwide leader in sports. It's really up to you. But I would say a B plus. Because I thought they made some really good moves, and I think there were also obviously ones we have no idea about, which kind of puts you in the you don't know if it's a good pick or not, which I think downgrades you. And and it's kind of crazy to even really grade a draft. Like we'd all agree, like to grade them 2 weeks after it happened as opposed to 2 or 3 years, but.
Right.
From the outset, I would say a B plus.
I'm gonna go with A plus. No, I give A minus B plus is right around where I have it. Really, honestly, for all the reasons you just said. I mean, there's a couple guys that you just don't know. And I mean, that's with every draft, you know what I mean? So I tend to lean A minus because it was based on need.
But the move ups to do that.
Right. Yeah.
That's where I'm at. That's probably what changes for me an A minus to a B plus. is you had to give away a third, especially a third, to go up in the fourth to get somebody not many people know much about. But I don't know.
Right.
We'll see. It could be a triple plus like you're talking about, or could be the worst draft in Lions history, and we have no idea yet.
That'd be hard to do.
That would be.
You have to really mess it up. To have to be the worst draft class.
Sticking with Lions real quick, I we've kind of talked about this before, but I just, the reason I brought it up was because I had read something about it. And what, in your mind, would be best for not only Jared Goff, but the Lions for the future? Whether that be a short-term deal, a long-term deal, him just playing out his deal and then see what happens. You know what I mean? There's a lot of question about it. And I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it.
What do you consider a long-term deal? Like 3 years, 4 years?
Well, and then, that's kind of plays into the whole question, because it's like, is that long-term deal based on Hooker? Is that based on a quarterback they see 2 years from? You know what I mean? So I would assume, we'll just say a long-term deal is probably 4 years. He'll be 28, 29.
I think he's 29 right now.
29, 30.
I mean, he's in the prime of his career, in a sense of quarterbacks. I mean, he's probably coming off one of the best seasons he's ever had in theory. I know he had that big year with the Rams, but ideally, I think, they're going to re-sign him. I think Eddie and I talked about it last week with them re-signing St. Brown. Maybe that was just a conversation we had all been texting about, but you don't re-sign St. Brown, who has all this chemistry with Goff, and not bring him back. You never know, but I think they do re-sign him, but I'm hoping for something more. I would hope for something maybe a little bit more short-term. 4 years probably isn't that bad, depending on guarantees and incentives and, how the cap plays out and all that stuff. But I would be happy if they re-signed him to a 3-year deal. I think that's what they go with for now. I guess they could go longer. Maybe Goff wants a shorter contract. I doubt it, because, job security and all that stuff. But for me, a 3-year contract would be perfect for him, especially if he plays well this year as well. And I think it's a good confidence boost for him that they believe in him if they do it as soon as they can, instead of waiting. Because if you wait till the end of the season, given that's the smart play, would be to wait to the end of the season to see what happens. But you don't know how he's going to play if he's feeling that pressure. So ideally, I think they try to sign him to a 3-year deal, like a Kirk Cousins-esque type of thing, where he's got a bunch of guaranteed money. Maybe he wants to take less. If he wants to take less money to help the team, then bring him back. Bring him back for 5 years. If he's going to take
the deal
less
would
money.
Be done.
Exactly. So,
I
think ideally a 2-3 year deal with probably a bunch of guaranteed money would probably be the most ideal, just to, if he doesn't perform after Ben Johnson leaves, because that's really what I'm most concerned about, is Ben Johnson leaving and, him not being the same once that scheme is gone. That's the only thing I worry about with him. So you get him on a 3-year deal. Maybe you can cut ties on that last year if he's not playing well, or trade him for something, So that would be the most ideal scenario for me.
Yeah. Ideally, I think you get, like you're saying, a Kirk Cousins contract, 4 years. it's at least going to be $100 million guaranteed, which I think is what Kirk got, but it's probably going to have to be higher than that because they're going to say, well, he's done more than Kirk has lately or whatever, so he'll probably get more than that. I don't know. I think this is you just talking made this come to my mind. So this is probably wrong. That the scheme's going to have to change, and maybe Ben Johnson leaving for another job next year isn't a bad thing, because things are going to have to evolve, as it goes. And I think Jared Goff, while he thrives very much in the scheme, I think it more than that just depends on what you have on a line in front of him. And so I think if he's protected and you've already re-signed Sewell, obviously you're drafting some other linemen, I think as long as you're keeping that the priority, Goff's going to be fine. And I think you're going to have to change that scheme up anyway. I don't think you can run the same thing even this year. The exact, you can't, nobody does that, right? Nobody runs the exact same thing unless you're trying to not win again, right? Because everybody else is adjusting to what you're doing. And so I think a change will probably be good. It probably won't be because Ben Johnson's done a fantastic job, obviously, and he could make it evolve, which he probably has.
Right.
As it goes forward. But ideally, yes, like a 4-year with like that 4th year kind of being like an out year kind of thing. Lots of guaranteed money up front. Hopefully they can say it's 40 mil over 4 years, 160 guaranteed, 110, with an out in the 4th year. That's a lot. But I mean, the dude's played his way into it.
Yeah. He's earned the contract extension. He has.
No doubt. And I think it would be a huge hit to the morale of a lot of the guys.
Just what I was about to say. I mean, just based off at the draft, right? With Amon-Ra and him saying Jared Goff, and just, you can obviously tell that everyone, well, at least that starts, likes him. So I guarantee, and I wonder with the timing, like if St. Brown did that to kind of send a message to the front office too, to get that done.
Maybe.
I mean, I don't know. You're
or he's could have been pandering to the fans as well.
True, but he probably also doesn't want to get passes from somebody else. I mean, there's obviously that's the only quarterback he's known in the NFL. They're obviously very comfortable.
Yeah.
It's two-sided. I think you're right. He's probably some pandering there for sure. But
no, I think he means it, but also a little bit of pandering.
Yeah, I agree to that to an extent, but I mean, he could have been like Barry or like Let's Go Lions, and it was just kind of specific. I mean, everyone was out there. It seemed like half the team was out there up on stage. You know what I mean? So I mean, it just. I mean, you're probably right. He was probably just painting the crowd, but like I looked at that and I'm like, well, they did just re-sign Panay and St. Brown to a ton of money, and so, but yeah, no, I'm with you guys. I agree. He deserves the extension. If you had asked me that before the season, I probably would have said play it out, but you hit the nail on the head. He played his way into it. I mean, NFC Championship game, you're a half away.
It wasn't him that cost us. I mean,
right.
Oh.
So, yep, no, I agree, and he's definitely earned it. So, next up, last segment of the night is the Tigers Weekly Update. Dean, you filled in well last week.
Oh, double roar!
Putting that in there. The boys went 4-2 since last week's recording, taking the series actually today, which would be Wednesday, from the Cards. That's the fourth straight series that they've taken. Twins, Rays, and Royals as well. Sit 2 games back through 31. Outside of the glaring problems we talk about every week, not a bad week for the boys, huh, guys?
Yeah, not bad at all. I mean, they were able to pull out that series or take one of those games in that doubleheader on Tuesday. Flaherty had a lights out game. I mean, was not expecting that out of him. He hadn't been really lighting the boards up, up to this point. But I mean, he looked like a guy that could, you know what I mean? That could be really sweet, given he's 28, I believe, right? I mean, I don't know where the potential really ends there with pitchers. But I mean, he looked great. Skubal has been great as well. Riley Green had been tearing up. That Wenzel Perez he's been legit since he's come up. I've been enjoying what I've been seeing. I mean, it's still early, but third in the division right now. Keep on going.
I'm keeping on, man.
As far as pitcher longevity, David Wells pitched till he was like 45 years old. So
Verlander,
that guy was 8.
It was, the injuries, man.
Yeah,
that railed old Flaherty. Bummer to lose the game. I mean, listening to it on the radio when he was striking everyone out at the beginning, dude, it sounded like Dan Dickerson was about to burst through his pants.
Yeah.
I mean, like, honestly, were you guys listening?
Got him on the eye.
I was
dude. He was going nuts. Oh, you were watching. And actually, just one quick side note on that is, what happened to Bobby Scales? It's been like all Andy Dirks.
I think they rotated out because initially, like the first game when I was listening to it, I thought it was Andy Dirks, and then it was Bobby Scales. I'm like, oh,
you thought that was Andy Dirks? You thought Andy Dirks sounded like Bobby Scales?
Well, I don't listen to a lot of Andy Dirks.
No. Well, here's the thing. I had never heard Bobby Scales before that I could remember, but there's no way I would have attributed that voice to Andy Dirks.
I mean, I did. I didn't hear much of either one of them. I was like, is that Andy? Because I knew he had been around before, and I didn't even know about Bobby Scales.
In your defense, I did, when he kept saying Bobby, I was like, is that Bobby Higginson? And how far away is Higginson from Dirks? Not that far. It's a quick jump.
Pigment.
Disappointed in the bats. I mean, in that game specifically, only 4 hits in a game that you're like, that's Flaherty's best start in years. He was hitting high 90s fastballs, which I guess he hadn't done in a couple years also. I'd seen and heard people talk about Hinch's decision to pull Flaherty when he did. But I heard Hinch talking about it on the radio actually this morning, and he was like, guys, Flaherty was gassed. He said, go look at his reaction. Go look at Flaherty's reaction after his last strikeout. So I'm like, okay, I'm good with that decision. I mean, he talks to the guys between innings and whatever, and Hinch obviously being a catcher back in the day has probably got a pretty good idea of what he's doing. And I think Foley is our closer, but I think, and it's weird thinking about that, could be a piece thinking about acquiring at the deadline potentially. Hinch has said he doesn't like to name a closer. He likes to play matchups, but dude, that's bull. When the Astros won the World Series in 2017, they had a closer with 34 saves, and the next closest guy had 4. So it's not like that's something he just loves to do on a regular basis. Maybe that's something he likes to do when we're not stealing signs, but like it's something that that he doesn't actually buy into unless you don't have one, right? It's like what I can't remember what's the when they're like if you have two of them then you don't have one. What are you know what I'm talking about? There's some sports analogy where they're like, oh, if you have two of those, then you don't even really have one. So that's what came across my mind. Good teams. I can't complain, man. But the good teams win both of those games in the doubleheader yesterday. As I've said a million times, you can't count on last minute heroics to win sustainably. Torque's got to step up. I mean, Hinch is talking about Torque this morning, saying, yeah, we got to work on his approach and some of his mechanics. He's fine. And then the next breath, when he's talking about Winsell Perez, said, oh, yeah, that kid's hitting great right now. Obviously, as we saw today also. He's taking time. He said he's taking time away from other guys. He said the other day I moved Canada first so Perez could play, and I gave Torque a rest. Well, guess what? If you're as good as Torque is supposed to be, Canna or somebody else is the one who's supposed to sit. Right. But it is what it is, man. I mean, I don't know, man. I'm happy they're winning right now. They're 18-13. We're just about 20% through the season. If we repeat those numbers, we'll be 90-65 with 7 games to go. Is that going to happen? I mean, probably not. But I feel pretty damn good about that. I mean, both wild card teams last year in the AL had 90 wins and 89 wins. Right? One had 90, one had 89. That 90-win team being the Rangers, who, as we know, won the whole damn thing. Let's go win the whole damn thing.
That'd be sweet.
We might need another bat. We might need a closer. I don't know. But if they could repeat 18-13 5 more times, baby, we've got 90 wins.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Yeah. There was something that Hinch had said, too, after today's game that I liked, too, where he was saying where today's win, I mean, it goes to show because, like you said, they won the last 4 series, right? He said it's something where we're capable of winning any series that we're in. It's just a matter of getting it going. Those aren't his words exactly, but I mean, I was like that. I mean, that's a good attitude to have about it too. I mean, especially with as young as this team is. I mean, you look at all the rookies or just guys in their early 20s that are just in the lineup alone or on the roster. I mean, it's good to get these guys pumped up for something. So,
I mean,
but I
got to get some runs on the board early. I think there was a stat that they've won the 13 of their 18 games they've won. They scored first. So which seems weird to me because of how many times it feels like they've had to make something happen.
Yeah.
At the end of the game, but I don't know, man.
I read something. Someone commented.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, well, yes, I did. Someone commented and said, "When do we play the White Sox again? The Twins have won 7 against those."
Yeah, no kidding.
No.
So,
I know, dude. And there was another thing. It was of the 9 teams we played, I think 4 or 5 of them have over 500 records. So, I mean,
it's probably
winning against winning clubs.
Right. It's a good thing.
Yep. So, all right. Well, let's wrap it up for this week. Appreciate everyone listening and watching. If you're listening on Spotify, hello, we see you. And like and subscribe.
It's me.
I want to shout out real quick. Go Griffins. Game 2 tonight, Central Division semis.
They're already going to be past game 2.
Oh, yeah. Possibly game 3. So.
Go
Griffins, shout out to 3. You know what? I'm going to figure this out today. All right. Well, everyone have a great week. Thank you for watching, listening, and we will see you next time.
Sports Talk.